3, 2, 1. Groovy. Just like how this is a very groovy podcast. Hello, everybody. I'm your host, Ian Taylor, and welcome to the 91st episode of Thursdays with Moire for a very bizarre fan-selected episode from my good, although one of the films made me question my friendship with him, good friend Matthew Jacob. A movie all about guns for limbs, or more specifically, chainsaws for limbs. A bit of
Guns
false
for
advertising.
hands.
Yeah, a bit
Yeah.
of false advertising
I'm
there. But
trying to sleep.
now, who is this random singer over here? Who is this guy? Who's this fucking guy?
Ah, that's a good question. Who is this guy? I've only been on every single episode since we started.
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, this is from the perspective of somebody joining us from the first time. Well, this is the first
True.
episode. The 91st episode.
Every episode is everyone's first episode when they start listening.
Well, you gotta treat it like such, right? You know, it's...
Oh, yeah. My name's Devin, last name King, and I'm the co-host of this show, and kind of the server runner that we have over on Discord, which you should go join.
I'll put a link in the description below.
Yeah, link in the description, all that important info.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have a fun episode tonight. The original title is Gun Limbs, but as we'll talk about in Evil Dead 2, they have probably one of my favorite sight gags when his hand gets possessed. Spoilers, by the way, or for anyone that hasn't seen Evil Dead 2. When his hand gets possessed, he cuts it off, and then he buries it under like a trash can lid to stop it from moving, and then puts a farewell to arms on top of it, which is I thought was a really fitting episode title for tonight's theme.
I mean, everybody's bidding farewell to their arms and their hands and their legs.
Although, considering the theme of tonight's episode, in which people's hands have been dismembered and replaced with a weapon, why aren't we talking about Videodrome?
Yo, more specifically, why are we talking about a film where, spoiler alert, there's a chainsaw for a hand, not a gun? Bit of false advertising there, Matt. Come on.
Well, no, that's why I changed it up to Farewell to Arms, because Gun Limbs wasn't accurate.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was false.
It gets the idea across for sure. Also, the people that like request the really odd episodes, how come they can't make it on? That's what I'm wondering.
Matt's got shit to do. I think just recently.
Fair enough.
He started getting day shifts, but he's kind of working around that still, and he has a wife and a life, and I have neither of those things, so I'm not one to judge.
Fair enough.
I want to know what that's like, having a life.
Oh yeah.
My God, it must be miserable, painful.
At least we have a podcast, and we have through every film are able to live vicariously through the lives of the characters we view.
Exactly. We make this show to entertain you guys during these questionable, strange times. And we'll be on here forever. You can't get rid of us. I'm sorry. I apologize in advance. Also apologize in advance for my thoughts on one of these movies. But another one may be a pleasant surprise. Spoiler alerts for all 3 films, by the way, guys. I can't stress that enough. If you haven't seen any of these films, so you don't want any spoilers, even if it isn't an old film, I get it. You want to go in blind if you've been looking to watch it for a long time. I get it. We've got timestamps down below if you're watching this on YouTube. Feel free to click on whichever films you don't give a shit about or you've already seen, and click away from the films you might want to see yourself and try to keep spoiler free. So, avoiding spoilers for this film, if you've somehow managed to do so already, might be a good thing, because there are some interesting surprises in store for The Evil Dead 2. Much believed to be a remake of the first Evil Dead, but this was disproven for one of the most bizarre trivia stories I've ever read. So, Evil Dead 1 had a low budget, but also didn't particularly do well in theaters, which discouraged Sam Raimi from making a sequel to it for the longest time. Only for his next film, I forget the name of it, but it was such a big flop that he convinced himself to do an Evil Dead 2 and try to make it a little more marketable, a little more comedic. So, here we go with a different production studio, and the budget was so low that they couldn't afford the rights to the first movie to reuse footage from the first movie to explain what happened in the first movie. So that's why we get a bunch of opening shots where they basically change up what happened in the first movie. Now it's only just Ash and his girlfriend instead of the rest of the lovely folks at the cabin. And instead of like Ash getting um done up by a tree, we get something more tasteful where she gets possessed instead. But it also starts off the same way where Ash got, possessed in that twist ending of the first film. Spoiler for the first film. He gets possessed in this movie only for the cross to take it away because Sam Raimi, we can't let him get away with this. All of his films have are very religious in nature. All of them have lots of screaming women because that's his fetish. A lot of them have like really crazy, ambitious, weird shots and special effects, and I feel like it all kind of stems from this movie. This is about as Sam Raimi as a film gets. If you ever want to learn about a director's style, this film is the way to go. What's it about? Well, Bruce Campbell essentially goes insane with his cabin. The dead spirits are back once again, and they're basically making his life a miserable hell, while a bunch of horrible actors, who are essentially just there for exposition, swing by and manage to make the spirit go away, but oopsie opens a portal up to medieval times for arguably the best film in the trilogy, Army of Darkness. And I'm not kidding, that's basically what happens in Evil Dead 2. And I've been meaning to see this one for a while because I've only seen Army of Darkness. I haven't seen the first two. I watched the first one as
Okay.
well, and that's
I
alright.
it,
It's
it's
fun, not
it's
bad.
weird. I haven't seen Army of Darkness, and then for a while I
Mmm,
hadn't seen this one, and it was the first one that I had seen only at that point, which I loved
interesting.
that movie, and I don't know why it didn't naturally occur to me to go seek out the second one. Maybe it just wasn't available at Blockbuster at the time when I was seeking these movies out.
Yeah, that would
But
do it.
it was a trip to go back and rediscover this one. I'll say that.
And I think there's a reason Army of Darkness is my favorite one. Mostly because it has a plot and like a unique setting and backdrop and a little bit of variety. Like this movie kind of
It
feels like
I
a
think
model to show off special effects in Bruce Campbell, and the special effects in Bruce Campbell are great, but after like long before the film was over, it's not even that long, but I just felt like I needed a little bit more. It felt very repetitive and like it just had one trick up its sleeve and it kept using the same trick over and over. It's just missing something. I don't know what it's missing, but it's missing a little something. Something that
mm,
Army of Darkness had.
money,
Oh,
money.
I mean, money is part of it, but you don't need like a high budget to make like a really interesting,
Mhm.
exciting movie. Like I think, for example, like the Raid Redemption, like that was probably shot for even less than this, but that movie had the budget of being shot like at an apartment. So like every level, there's like different goons to deal with, different like situations and layouts. Like I feel like that film kind of had that benefit, so it kind of felt like less repetitive in nature. Whereas this is just, oh, Bruce Campbell deals with something wacky, that something wacky almost kills him, and
Yeah.
then he deals with that something wacky at the last minute, and that's
It's like
basically the
it's like
movie.
him in every movie. It's basically every movie that him and Sam Raimi worked on, which
Oh, for sure.
you could tell they have to be good friends because like
Mm.
I don't know any other actor that would go through this kind of torture.
Yeah, I
You
know,
know,
and apparently, like he'd injure
just
himself a
continuously.
lot. Like there's a lot of broken
Man,
stuff in this movie. Like that's where all the money went, was just destroying the absolute shit out of this cabin.
how does Raimi get away with it?
Yeah, that's a very good question. How does he get away with it? And I feel like this is like a perfect short film. If this was like just the first 30 minutes and that's it, it'd be like one of the greatest short films ever made. Like it's really, it manages to strike that comedic and horrific tone. There's a lot of like really impressive special effects, especially for the time. And Bruce Campbell is so good and so funny. Like he's basically just like a silent actor at points. Like just with how expressive he is and how like he's great at like using his body to add to comedy, like the way he'll fall off after like breaking the chair or just by saying splash of all the blood. He's like, ah, god damn it! Like he adds
No,
so much to this movie.
and I think they did a good job kind of integrating comedy into this, where it's just
Mm-hmm.
so absurd and so over the top, where he's just like at times he's just like drowning in buckets of blood from
Quite literally,
these
yeah.
like creatures, and he's like fighting these giant paper mache kind of animatronic creatures. and it's so like cheesy and fake looking and over the top that you can't help but just smile when watching it. Like
Yeah,
it's
it
just such a
absolutely
delight.
fits. And I think the best bit is like all of the laughing props. Like he'll fall down the chair and like the caribou will laugh, and then the lamp and like all of the furniture will laugh with him. And like his acting is so good in that scene because he goes from confusion to bewilderment when he's blinking to like kind of like going along with it and doing that weird little dance. Then he laughs, and then he cries from grief, and then he has like a moment of paranoia. It's like in the course of 2 minutes, like we go through so many emotions without like one line of dialogue. I'm just like, okay, I wasn't expecting that caliber of acting in this cheesy, low budget 80s Sam Raimi schlock. Like that's actually like really impressive outside of being like a funny and bizarre scene.
Oh yeah, I mean it absolutely delves into like the surreal, definitely the absurd, but you can tell they're just having a good time with this and
Mm-hmm. I agree.
exploring kind of even like weird emotional depths and even in such an absurd kind of situation. Um, and it's so funny to me that they couldn't get the rights to their own movie to reuse footage, so they had to
Yeah,
recreate it. Because I was always wondering what that lack of continuity was, because I had always heard growing up that it just picks up with the last one left off, but then they kind of retread some stuff, and I'm like, oh, I wonder why they had to do that.
and that's why. Like, you think that would have been settled before they made the movie? Like, right? Like, you think like the studio would be like, "Oh, hey, you're making Evil Dead 2. Hang on a minute. Like, you gotta like pay for some royalties here or settle something." Like, you think that would have been
Mm,
established long before the film was made, but I guess 80s was
I think
just a very different time for cinema.
I think they had more of a budget than they had for the first one though. Like it's still
That's
low,
true.
but I also think that maybe lack of budget or lack of production helps with the scrappiness. It helps keep this kind of manic,
Yeah, it makes more
uh,
charming.
you know, yeah, energy. It has this energy to it where you can tell that they're flying by the seat of their pants to make this thing, and that just keeps it a little more exciting
Hmm. There
as you're
was a
watching it.
Roger Ebert review where he said like there's something like all of the low budget effects and camera work just adds so much personality to the experience, and I agree. Like it adds like so
Mhm.
much charm and personality, but despite the low budget, like it's so ambitious. Like some of the camera shots they go for, like there's a great one. I first off, I love the effects of the spirit, like the way it's shot and the way it kind of sounds like a plane slowly crashing. Like it's really creepy and cool. And there's one shot in particular where it's a long take of chasing him throughout the house, and Bruce Campbell's like going through all these different rooms. He's going through like a tight little alleyway, beneath, like between the bathroom and one of the bedrooms, and like the shot just keeps going. And like it's a great example of like not taking no for an answer. Like I don't care if I don't have the money to do this, we're gonna do it. And there's just
Yeah,
something so admirable about that.
and it's so fun seeing the whole set that way as well, because like
Yeah, it's
they
very
could have
clever.
easily just hid, equipment in one of the cabin rooms, and for shots that they you didn't need to see it. But that shot shows that, there is no crew just kind of hiding around on the set, that he's that they are able to kind of show off everything that they have there.
Hmm.
Um, and they also do a really good job hiding lights. So there are these spotlights that are pretty obvious, but for a DIY budget, I'm sure there was like raw footage where you actually saw the lights by accident. Um, but they did a decent job hiding them for the most
Yeah,
part.
very good job.
Like I like how transparent the production is. Like it's just so fun to kind of see how they put this kind of thing together, but also it's just out of frame. Like once you see what like a Fresnel lens can do to a light, you just recognize that type of look in all kinds of movies.
Hmm.
But um, yeah, I can really respect the amount of work that they put into this low budget film.
Yeah, like you really have to look for the imperfect. Despite slow budget, you still have to look pretty hard for the imperfections, which is very impressive for like a film
Hmm.
shot on this kind of budget. But I think like the film gets less interesting when like the other characters show up. Like they are the perfect example of they're just there for exposition and nothing else. Like they're so one note. They
Yeah.
have no personality. Like
Well,
even their comedic timing doesn't work nearly as well as Bruce
they
Campbell.
yeah, I think they die as quickly as they're introduced though. so it's not too bad.
Yeah, I know, but it's still like it's just I've mentioned before on the podcast, so I'm like really not a fan of like red shirt deaths where you're just setting up characters to be killed off, but we just end up feeling nothing because we just see it coming because the character serves no other purpose to the story. I hate shit like that, and that kind of bugged me that
Oh yeah, it's
they
like,
pulled a
hey,
similar
my
fate.
father wrote my father's the one that recorded this tape thing. That's why I'm here. That's basically her whole purpose
Yeah,
for being
and I
there.
just assume my grandpa's gonna be at the cabin, and assume he's gonna have his tape recorder. Like, what if he wasn't there? Like, what if he, felt like staying at home for a few weeks, or what if he got sick? Like, why do you assume he's just always gonna be at the cabin?
This is
Makes no
true.
sense. But
Also, if
yeah,
if you find this Book of the Dead and you think that reading the passages would release these evil spirits, why would you record yourself saying them?
well, at first
The-
that was the clever workaround because in the first movie they were like so stupid by reading them. But with Bruce Campbell, like there's a clever workaround where they do it for the audio recording, so it doesn't make him look anywhere near as stupid. It just makes him go like, "What's this weird audio recording here?" Like he
Mhm.
wasn't dumb enough to read into the like Book of the Dead. It was just somebody else saying the words, and like that's a clever workaround to make the character smarter. But then the other characters do equally stupid decisions. It's like, oh, so all
Oh
that
yeah.
set up and yeah, nothing there. But there's still a lot to like admire about the production of the movie. It's just that's kind of all it has going for it, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
There's other
Well,
like low budget
yeah.
productions that had a little more like meat on its bones, I guess, beyond just like, look what we can do with these camera effects and cool shots and special
Mhm.
effects and look at Bruce Campbell act and it's like, yeah, all of that's great, but it doesn't hold my interest for an 80-minute movie. And Army of Darkness knew this and at least tries to like shake it up a little bit and get Bruce Campbell to play off of other characters for once.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing that one because I think just
Mm.
going back and seeing, the history of Raimi getting away with it. Um, no, no, like I think you can go back and really appreciate how far they've come as a collaboration.
Yeah.
Like Bruce Campbell and Sam Raimi have worked together from these movies onward, and he's been pretty much in almost every one of those movies since. And when you go back and see this, I think you can understand why they are good friends,
Oh
making
yeah,
something like
they've been
this.
for like Hell and High Water together. Like the first film was like plagued with so many production issues. They had like issues like filming the second Evil Dead. Like I said, like all of the opening scenes were done last minute because they realized they couldn't afford the rights like in the middle of production, so they had to make up some bullshit and get it like a. I don't think it's even the same actress. I could be wrong, as in the first movie. So they had to get a completely different actress, and it's clear that she can't act either. Like shooting a project like this must be a nightmare, and I appreciate them, if nothing else, for sticking through
Hmm.
with it, which I can admire. And that's what I think Sam Raimi does best. Like I don't think he's great at like handling like these long projects where he basically does the same kind of narrative, but for stories that it doesn't really work for. I think he's at his best way just like completely leans into the goofiness and absurdity of the situation and just like makes the
Hmm.
best of it. Like he's not great being reined back by like he's not the best of like big budget productions. Like these are the kind of films where he belongs in my mind. And Army of Darkness is a great example of that. And can I just say, we need more medieval horror movies, man. Like holy shit.
Oh yeah.
That is a
No, I think
genre mix that needs to happen more often.
no, I agree. I think there's plenty of horror to be found in the medieval era. Um, I mean, just look at the whole Black Plague. That was all kinds of horror right there. But no, I think yeah, it's fun seeing him kind of get thrown back in time to the medieval era, and I know that's set up for Army of
Yeah.
Darkness.
Here's my
But
thing too. Like I think another reason why I liked Army of Darkness more is because it has an ending. It has like a satisfying ending. I'm not gonna spoil what it is, but it ends. Like the first two movies end with like pretty blatant sequel bait, and second one's definitely the worst offender because there's that whole dumb scene
mhm,
where it's like, "Who's that?" And it's a guy with a chainsaw surrounded by a bunch of knights. It's like he is the chosen one. He is the one that is gonna lead the, the medieval soldiers against the Deadites. And I'm like, that is just the dumbest. like sequel baiting ever. It's like, oh, history's gonna repeat itself. I know what the ending's gonna be. Like, if we're gonna lecture like Marvel movies and modern movies for that kind of bullshit blatant sequel baiting, why can't we criticize films like this for bullshit blatant sequel baiting? You know,
They were
like why
before
do
our
films like
time, and this was how they. I guess you should maybe blame these movies for that kind of thing. Um,
yeah, for
but
sure.
at least it does come to a conclusive ending. That's the thing where
Mm.
Marvel just keeps going and going and
Yeah,
going
that's true.
and
Like
going.
it's a trilogy
It's
and
like the
that's it.
Energizer. It's like the Energizer, buddy.
Yeah, I know. And even when it does end, it's just like we gotta leave like a little teaser. It's like no, just let it end. Just do a satisfying free movie trilogy and just let it end. Or like pull a Harry Potter and have like a bunch of like only be based off the books and let it end. None of this Fantastic Beasts spin-off bullshit that just adds nothing but fluff to the lore. Just have a satisfying trilogy and be done with it. Like that's the way it should be. Know when to lay your eggs to roost or whatever. Um, anyways, yeah,
I think a lot of people might have gave up after after making the first movie if it wasn't too successful. But I like the fact that he kind of came back and decided, hey, you know what, we can do this better. And you just sort of see them slowly kind of make the idea better and better
yeah,
with each movie.
I agree. The
Um,
series does get better as it goes along. I'll give it that. And
oh yeah,
this movie
and
made a ton of money. Yeah.
I love seeing the transition from this to Dark Man and then eventually Spider-Man, which was I think the first Sam Raimi film I probably saw as a kid growing up. And then later I went and found Evil Dead, not even realizing that they were the same director for a while.
Yeah, it doesn't quite feel like it, does it? Low less
No, but
PG.
if you see Dark Man, you absolutely see the transition he made from these movies to Spider-Man.
Yeah, I still need to see that. I've got that on
Oh
Blu-ray. I
man,
still need to watch it.
we're gonna do an episode on that at some point. Don't worry.
Anyways,
But I was just reading a fun fact here.
go on.
So I noticed there was some overdubbing in this movie,
Oh yeah,
particularly
yeah.
when he says the line "work shed," very obvious.
Work
But
said.
but yeah, it's like during that scene where he severs like Linda's head, and he just says work shed. I guess just so you have like insight of where he's thinking of going. Um, it was yeah redubbed because the quality of the audio was pretty crap on set. Um, and it gave the strange kind of disproportionate sound. 9 years later, when filming his cameo in Escape from L.A., the first thing Kurt Russell said to Bruce Campbell on the set was, "Stay work dead."
Yeah,
That's super
apparently he's a
funny.
big fan of this movie. Tons of people are. Like the legacy this film left behind. Like this is basically like the first big horror comedy. Like I think other films have tackled that before, but no other films that were nearly as successful as this one. Like it
No,
basically just
they
laid the
absolutely
groundwork.
hit that like
Hmm.
they hit that tone perfectly with this, where it's horrific and over the top, but it's kind of hilarious at how over the top it is.
Yeah, it
Like,
completely leans into the absurdity, which is a huge benefit for it, I think.
mm,
And without this, like we probably wouldn't have like sequels to Reanimator. We wouldn't have films like Dead Alive, or Brain Dead. I don't know which one it is, Brain Dead or Dead Alive, which I still need to see. I still need to see that one, but it just led way to like basically saying like horror films don't have to take themselves super seriously, which is something I could get behind because I hate most horror movies. So, thank you, Sam Raimi. We'll let you get away with this one.
yeah.
What are you gonna give Evil Dead 2 out of 10?
I just have one more fact that I want to read here, but
Please
I
do.
remember seeing the production company called Rosebud at the very beginning. I'm like, I've never seen of that company before. I wonder what else they did. Apparently, they did nothing else. Um,
Yeah.
it was not a real institution. The producer was forbidden to release an unrated movie through his own company, so he
Yep.
created Rosebud specifically for Evil Dead 2, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, there was like major controversy behind that where like apparently like the blood was censored. Like it used to be even worse, but they censored it and then they're like, nah, it's still unrated. They're like, okay, like we went through all of this work, like color grading the movie and cutting out certain scenes and you're not even gonna release it unrated. So at that point they're just like, fuck it, like this isn't worth it. Let's just release the
Insane.
movie, find a way to release it. Like this isn't worth it. Like it just it goes to show that studios just don't know what they're talking about. Like they don't have the audience's best interest in mind. They just think they do. It's
Mm-hmm.
so annoying that they just went through so much work just for it to fire back in their face. Because it just makes you think, like, why bother? But that could be like a really dangerous way of thinking because your film can never get out there. Which this film
Oh
almost
yeah.
didn't. But despite my issues, I'm glad it did. I'm giving
Oh yeah.
this,
It's
yeah.
just. Oh, you're gonna give it a rating?
No, you first.
No, you first.
Alright. I'm gonna give this one, people will probably be pissed off at this, 6.9 out of 10.
God damn it! I was gonna give it that.
Oh, well, we could both give it a 6.9.
You know what? I'm gonna up it to a 7.5 just because.
Oh, I see how it is. Okay, you gotta pander to other people's ratings. Hack. It's a hack. Confirmed. We
No,
confirmed it's Steven.
I honestly did enjoy this one a lot. Like 6.9 is nice, but this is a good time.
Yeah, it's a very good time. It's just, I don't know. I felt like something needed to change about the structure. Maybe it's just like the structure of the film in general, where it's just so exhausting. Like the whole film just feels like a third act. And like the conclusion didn't even feel like a conclusion. It just felt like the third act eventually wrapping up before hitting like the final beats. Like it's such a
Oh yeah.
weird way to structure film, and I don't know if it entirely works for me in that
It's
regard.
perfect. It's perfect Halloween filler though. Like
Yeah,
if you need something on in the background on Halloween, this is like the perfect
this
movie
is
for
the
that.
perfect party movie. Like 100%. Like have some
Exactly.
drinks, hang out with some friends, throw on some loud, like use like loud surround sound. It's definitely like meant for that kind of experience. It's a good Halloween movie for sure. It's like
100%.
silly and scary at the same time, which is kind of what Halloween's going for.
Exactly.
Now it's time for some Kino. Devin, please introduce
Unironic Kino, man. So
Planet Terror.
tonight we have Planet Terror, which is part one of the Grindhouse double feature that Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino famously put out back in the day. Man, what a Kino year 2007 was, eh? We
Yeah.
had No Country for Old
Mhm.
Men. I think There Will Be Blood was also being filmed at the same time in the same desert as that, and then we had Planet Terror. I mean, it was a stacked year for movies.
Go on.
Planet Terror and Death Proof, which some people have said Death Proof is like Tarantino's worst movie, but I still enjoy it, so that's probably saying something.
All right.
Um,
We can be friends,
but
I guess.
No, yeah, it's weird though that we're talking about Planet Terror, we're not talking about Death Proof, but I'll just mention them in tandem because they were two movies that uh, Robert Rodriguez, Quentin Tarantino had made, um, with the intention that they'd be released at the same time as a double feature, all under the guise of Grindhouse, which is their homage to like this 70s horror cinema that was coming out back in the day, like this low budget Grindhouse movies. Um, which we kind of have an old school theater like that in London called the Highland, and they do like retroactive movies actually, in a similar kind of vein. But no, these movies came out in 2007, and I kind of blame these movies for making me intrigued or at least more aware of the film medium.
Mm.
Like they really exaggerate the grime, dirt, debris, dust, and hairs that you get on film prints when they've been mishandled, which is very much a deliberate artistic choice in this case, instead of just incidental, elements that happen when you have a film print on a low budget film that you don't really care too much about. It just kind of gets thrown around. But no, these films are like definitely an homage to that era of cinema, which was before our time, and it definitely like intrigued me when I first saw the trailers for this. I don't think I was allowed to watch them at the time they came out, but eventually years later I came back to them and still enjoy this one. It knows kind of what it is. It's low budget charm. Um, Although I'd say it's a little more competently made than the films that it's paying homage to.
Mm-hmm.
What's interesting to me is that these were actually shot digitally, or at least this film was shot digitally,
Yes.
um, on like this high quality tape that they had for a while. Like Sony cameras, I think, were making these like super like HD quality tape somehow. I'm not sure how that technology works actually before they change it over to like hard drives. Um, but all the film effects that they made were created in post, where they scanned real film prints basically, and then they would overlay them, um, which is a technique that I've used before. I've used like film scans to create a film look on digital footage, and it's this is kind of you can blame this film for this whole era of people paying homage to older films and giving them a deliberate film look. That's very obvious.
Hmm.
And there's lots of funny kind of sight gags that they create.
Yep.
Well, funny in the context of this, there's like for example, they're talking about how this guy had a really bad infection on his penis, and the best way that they had to take care of that was to sever it. And when they were gesturing with them cutting, there was a splice in the film stock as well, uh,
Nice. Yeah, I
which
noticed
is
that too.
hysterical.
Yeah.
And
Oh man.
it, it's just it's what's it, ludonarrative resonance. I think they use
Dissonance.
ludonarrative.
Yeah.
No, no, they use ludonarrative dissonance when they're talking about video games where the mechanics of the game are at odds with the story of the game. Where
Ah.
I would
Yeah.
say this is ludonarrative resonance, where the medium and the way it's presented is totally in harmony with the story it's telling, I
Okay.
guess.
All right.
But I haven't even gotten really too much about the story. I'm just geeking out about the
I mean,
technicalities.
it's a bunch of
But
nonsense, you know.
oh yeah, it's a bunch of nonsense. There's this what there's a stripper, and she's not having a good time at work. She is fed up with like the workplace culture, so she quits. Uh, and then she's on the road, and then there are these army people who are driving by, and this guy has like a big vat full of testicles that he severed. And then this whole
Christ.
zombie outbreak happens because he releases a chemical into the air. It's just a bunch of the, you know, same lurid nonsense that you would expect from these kind of movies, but this film makes it charming with how nonsensical and lurid as it is.
Yeah.
It feels like a pulp novel, or it's like you fell asleep while reading pulp novels, basically. That's what it feels like
So
watching this movie.
this movie's awesome. I love this movie. This movie is surprisingly very much in the same vein of Black Dynamite and Dark Place, where
Oh yeah,
it's
that
a
whole era.
little genre I call a homogeny, a homage and a
Homage,
parody,
interesting.
where it's clearly a loving homage to Grindhouse films, but it's also a perfect parody of it. And so many of the jokes come from like subtle sight gags and how the script makes no sense. And there's a lot of like great running jokes, like how everybody wants the BBQ guy's recipe, or how nobody notices like the very obvious signs of being zombies. Like it's just, is it as funny and clever as something as Black Dynamite? No. No, it's not. But holy crap, is it close. And I just had an absolute. This film was everything Machete wanted to be, but wasn't. This is. The whole time I was just like, man, this is that one hospital scene from Machete, but now it's just a full movie. Like, even like the conversation scenes are just more entertaining, like especially between the stripper and like the lead protagonist. Like it's just the most like
Hmm.
purposely melodramatic nonsense, or it's like so what you gonna do? I'm gonna be a stand-up comedian. Don't you have to be funny to be a comedian? That's what I keep saying, but everybody keeps telling me I should be a stand-up comedian. It's like, what? Like, what are you even talking about? But it's just so purposely melodramatic. Like I love how
Oh, it's funny.
discount Anna Faris, or the doctor lady, is like talking to her son, and he's like, I chipped a tooth, and she's like, yeah, I know. Like everything she's saying is like up to 11. Like it's, but because like it's the last conversation she has, but even like the smallest things. Because normally when you do that thing in the movie, it's like something like reminds you that they're never gonna see them again or something like that. But there is like he's just like, oh, I'm missing a tooth, and she's like crying, and she always has like the cry makeup on throughout the rest of the fucking movie. And man, there are so many just like great like sight gags, and the film knows exactly what it is, and the cast just looks like they're having so much fun. I just had an absolute blast with this movie. It's easily the best film out of the three we're talking about tonight. I don't care. It's better than Evil Dead 2. Come at me,
Bearing the
nerds.
lead.
Come at me, nerds.
No, this movie's a good time, and I do think that the fact that it knows what it's paying homage to and it's not taking itself too seriously,
Hmm.
definitely adds to the charm of it.
Yeah, but
Um,
it's not like so overt and in your face. Like it's not cynical or like too obvious that it's bad on purpose. It's there's a surprising amount of like subtlety to the humor, which I appreciated. Like little details you
It's
wouldn't
funny
notice.
that you're comparing this to Machete as if that came out first when this
It
is
didn't.
the reason that Machete exists at all. Um,
Yeah,
and
no.
like
It's like he tried to make the
they
same
have the
movie.
fake trailer for Machete,
Hmm.
and because of the popularity of this film and the whole Grindhouse thing, people basically wanted to say, "Hey, we want to see a Machete movie now," and then he made it. And I
Nice.
guess the novelty kind of wore off either then
Yeah.
or there afterwards. Although Machete still had its moments, it was definitely kind of still in this vein.
It's still
But
in its vein, but it's just 80% of people talking about nothing. Whereas this film, like, there's just not a single dull moment. Even like the conversations are filled with like I said, subtle jokes and humor. But like the action is just so gloriously ridiculous. Like part of what made this film so entertaining is that I didn't know what kind of nonsense was gonna happen next. Like it just somehow like keeps topping itself, and you're just like, God, where are you taking this story now? Like the best bit in the movie was the missing film reel because we get a quote unquote sex scene in the movie, and by sex I mean they do a bunch of sexy poses and no actual fucking, which is great in of itself. But they're all like hanging out at the diner, and then quote unquote the film part of the film is missing, which is something that can happen where you're either like some of the film got damaged and it's missing like certain film reels, so they had to cut around that and remind the audience that hey, sorry, this part of the film's missing. So we cut back. The building's on fire. Everybody is here. Character, the stripper guy is sitting there, just like, oh yeah, two random characters. The cop is like friends with the Mexican guy now, and letting him use guns. It's so good. Like I was bursting out laughing at that scene. I'm just like, this is perfect. And again, the fact that none of it is ever addressed. There's never a character being like, wait, I feel like I missed something. It's just no, it just sticks to it. It commits to the bit at every level, and God, man, I can't stress enough how much fun I had with this movie. Holy shit.
oh, it's a good time. It's and
It's,
really, I feel remiss that we're not talking about Death Proof. It's like we should have had Video Joe. We should have had Death Proof on this one, but
but
no,
there's
it's
no
still a
gun
good time.
limbs.
It's still a good time on its own, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like it, I'd argue this is better than Death Proof, mostly because it does just know what it is and leans into it, and it also isn't 2.5 hours long like Death Proof is. Like it's a very even like the unrated version which I watched. I don't know which version you watched, but it's only like an hour and 45 minutes. Like it's pretty snappy and it
Oh yeah, it's
flies by
definitely quite
pretty.
snappy.
Yeah,
I mean, it's longer than the last film, but it this feels even breezier probably than Evil Dead 2 in a sense.
yeah, absolutely. And like I said, like the cast is just so much fun. Like they lead into their character tropes so well. Josh Brolin, like I knew he was gonna be a bad guy. I didn't know he was gonna be scarier than the zombies. Like the scene where he's like pulling out the needles is hilarious. Like I love. Why do they have free needles? So they can have an excuse to draw down as long as possible. He holds out the last needle very slowly to purposely like draw out the tension. But it's also horrifying. It's like Jesus Christ, like he's just like,
Oh no,
yo, here's what the first
there's so
needle
many gross
does.
things in this movie. Even when he's seeing that like first patient with like the infected tongue and like it like bursts as he's like
Yeah, he
poking
puts
at
his
it.
fingers on it, and then he
Oh
throws on a
fuck.
glove. It's like, oh my god. As someone who's been through surgery, I'm just like, this is not how any of this works, and I am so happy. Like, first off, like, free needles? No, it's one needle. It's an anesthesiac. It's one needle. It's not free fucking needles that you have to
No,
do
it's
in a
like
certain pattern.
I have three little friends. Here's my yellow friend, which takes this thing off. Here's my blue friend, which you won't feel, which
Which
means my yellow friend is working. And here's my red friend, which means you'll
you'll
never
never
see
see
me
me
again.
again. Which never
Like,
say that at a hospital, by the way.
nah,
Never fucking
that's
say that at a hospital.
it's hilariously ominous though. I
Yeah,
mean, no,
I know. It's
that's
just so
never
Josh
something you want
Brolin
to
could
say.
say it. Yeah. It's
But
like,
I don't know what it is about seeing just that like old school film grain against like the white walls of the hospital. It's like white and red. It just reminds me of all these like old school medical dramas and other like movies from that time
like
period.
Dark
Like, have you ever
Place.
seen Coma?
Yes, I've seen Coma. I've seen ER as well. Is that one
Oh
you're
yeah.
thinking of? Because it kind of reminded me a little bit of that as well.
A
just
little
the
bit of ER,
oversaturated sets.
a
Yeah.
little bit of coma. I don't
Hmm.
know. That was just the whole thing. I remember just this film really captured my imagination when I was younger, I
Yeah,
guess.
and that's a good feeling to have. Like it's better this movie about nostalgia than most nostalgic cash grabs we get these days, because it's less like here's exactly how these films were and more like here's how we remember them. You
True.
know, if that makes any sense.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
there's genuinely great aspects about this movie. Robert Rodriguez shot, edited, and co-wrote and did the music for this movie. Which, by the way, the music is so good.
All
So
the music is
apparently,
great, and
yeah, go.
this is what I love about Rod Rodriguez is that he has his kind of hands into every part of the production. He's director, writer, and like you were saying, musician as well, and he records the music for it, and it absolutely fits the vibe
Yeah,
perfectly.
it fits the vibe. It slacks. It's very catchy. Apparently, John Carpenter was originally set to do the soundtrack. Yeah, somehow a saxophone and a guitar. I don't know how you thought that was a combination that worked, but it's a combination that fits perfectly. And apparently, like all of the synth sounds
Absolutely.
is actually like excerpts from the Escape from New York score, because John Carpenter
Oh,
was set to do the soundtrack for this movie, but they had a dispute. Like I don't know if it was about payment or creative differences, and he walked off. And Robert Rodriguez was like, "All right, but you gotta do one thing. God give me the rights to use the Escape from New York soundtrack." And he put that in there. Like all of the like synth parts of the soundtrack, I'm pretty sure it's just excerpts from Escape from New York. I haven't seen the movie, but I did recognize that score a little bit. I'm like, hey, this sounds a little bit like John Carpenter, and sure enough, it was. He's just uncredited.
it definitely feels like it has that homage to it, which is really interesting.
Hmm.
Um, I also keep forgetting the fact that Bruce Willis is in this, which is really funny to
I mean,
me.
the film kind of
And
forgets he's in it.
oh no, it's a deliberate like nod. That this is an old trick that Grindhouse movie makers would do is that they would contract a big movie actor to be on set for one day
Yep.
and just having them on set for the notoriety, basically. That
Yep.
they would just and uh, and like for the rest of the movie is the rest of the movie, but they would have just this big name actor in for one scene or yeah for one part of the movie, and then they really milk that as much as possible.
Yeah, it's, it just there's one excerpt. Quentin Tarantino plays a rapist. We'll talk about it. I'm not sure how to feel about that, but
Oof.
he says
Well,
he's gonna get his
you,
dick
you,
wet.
you,
But hold up, there's Bruce Willis is asking like, "Where's Quentin Tarantino?" And the soldier's like, "Oh, he's getting his dick wet," just super casually, just like, "Oh, he's getting his dick wet," just that thing he always does. I thought that was hilarious.
Jesus Christ. I mean, I thought just reading that this was from the Weinstein Company felt dated, but
Oh no! Yeah, I saw
it's
that,
that whole
and I
era.
I saw the guy playing the stripper. I'm like, oh no, that better not be Harvey Weinstein. No, the guy like running the
No.
strip club. I'm like, oh no, that better not. Thankfully, it's not. It's just either a
Well,
friend or relative of Robert Rodriguez. But I think what helps is that these two films, apparently were just largely done by the directors. Like they had a ton of creative control in the project. Weinstein was apparently barely involved, so that does. I'd argue that makes it for a better viewing experience. Because otherwise, yeah, good good times. As soon as I saw that producer, I'm just like, well, that's unfortunate.
mm,
That's unfortunate. You couldn't cut around that. All right. But yeah, yeah. Thankfully, he didn't ruin the movie. So yeah, Quentin Tarantino plays a rapist. Like, I don't know how I feel about that. And I don't know how I feel that he's actually really good in that role.
oof.
Like he's just always
I
good at
mean,
playing like
it's like
violent
seeing
psychopaths. Yeah.
it's like seeing Vincent Gallo coming back for his big role after being disgraced by Hollywood in
Literally big.
the Daily Wire shut-in, and his big comeback role is as a pedophile. Like, why does it seem like the role you were born to play?
Oh my god.
This is
And
terrible.
yeah, and on top of that, oh boy, what did they do with his dick? What the fuck was that? That
Oh
was
yeah,
so
I'll just have to
gross.
make this quick. Oh
I'll have
yeah,
to make this quick. Oh my
just
god. Like,
just it dripping like that. Oh
yeah, that's
Jesus.
so.
That's for unfortunately that's like the image that sticks in my mind when I
Of
think about
course
this
it
movie.
is. I mean, I don't blame you. But there's like,
It seems it seems astronomically correct too. It's a perfect acidic dissection of it. Ugh,
yeah, they put a.
gross.
I wonder how much they paid for the CGI in that scene.
Oh, I hope the CG artists got paid well to do
I
that because
Yep, I hope.
if I had to model and render testicles that were like dripping off of the thing like that, I expect to get paid well because I'm not going to be sleeping very
Yeah,
well, but
hopefully they were
afterwards,
in and out very fast. They didn't spend a long time working on that, or at least
god
they
damn
didn't
it.
spend more time than they had to. And it's not like there aren't gross out jokes that work in this movie. Like my favorite gross out joke is the guy who owns the restaurant and he like dabs the zombie's blood. And he tastes it. It's like that's my new recipe. It's like that's blood, and he mixes that mixes it with his own blood. And he's like, "You're right," and then he tastes it again. I'm like, "Oh my."
Mhm.
That grossed me out and made me laugh at the same time. Like he's just trying to find his perfect recipe, like it's more important than what's going
Mhm.
on. And the cop's like, "Yo, give me that goddamn recipe. I'm gonna lock you up." And like it's dumb. It's not like that funny, but it's like I can't help but smile. I don't know why. Like even the
Oh
jokes
yeah.
that don't work for me in this movie, for the most part, it's just like I can't help but smile. It's like, you know what? That's cute. That was a cute attempt. I can't even be mad. But
I was
yeah.
just reading. There's another connection to No Country for All Men that I was realizing. I
Oh
mean, well,
yeah.
Josh Brolin
Hmm.
is in this movie and he's in that movie. Apparently, the Coens refused to give him an audition for the role as Llewellyn. So he asked Robert Rodriguez to help him shoot an audition tape when they were filming Grindhouse for it. Um, yeah, Rodriguez shot and Tarantino directed the tape, which was shot using a $950,000 digital camera.
Hmm.
Um, and then I think the one wife, Mary Shelton read the lines for his wife in that, and they made the audition tape. I'm curious if that is circulated anywhere, like his audition tape for No Country.
Mm.
But it's cool that he got
Yeah.
his other filmmaking buddies to help him get that role.
It's so wholesome. Like it's a really wholesome behind the scenes story. And the actress who played the doctor read the lines of Carla Jean. I think that's her name. Yeah,
Nice.
Carla Jean.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like really sweet when like film crews come together to kind of like help other members out. Like taking time out of their busy schedule just to be like, you know what? Like we're gonna do something to assist your career. Like that is it just shows like how close everyone was during production. And thankfully Weinstein was not anywhere close to this production, but like everybody else just looks like they're having so much fun making this movie, and the fun is just infectious.
Hmm.
It
Also, speaking of Josh Brolin, I'm just reminded of the Hot Ones interview he did not too long ago.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you saw like that whole
Oh
thing,
yeah,
but he has a whole anecdote about what happened on No Country for Old Men that's just hysterical.
yeah, that's a
I'll
great
post that in
episode
the
by the way.
chat.
If you haven't seen
Oh
Hot
yeah,
Ones yet, that's a great precursor. Like everything great about Hot Ones is just in that episode. It's one of my personal favorites. Strongly recommended, by the way. In terms of like actual issues with the movie, like you alluded to this earlier, and I'm trying to word this in a way that makes sense. This movie looks too good, you know? Like it doesn't fully commit to like the old school look like something like Young Frankenstein or Black Dynamite or
I think
even
it
Dark
does,
Place
but
did.
it's like, but like you can tell that there is like a perfectly clear digital camera shooting this stuff
Yeah.
with film noise on top of it, because I think what might have helped the look even further is if they had used, I don't know if they used vintage lenses on this one or if they like if they had some shots that were just straight up out of focus, it might have helped. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Well, also
Um,
something else is they use CGI. And I'm just like,
True.
no.
It's hard to match. Well, it's not that I'm against CGI. It's all
No,
about how you use it,
it
right?
all has
So
its place, and it doesn't really fit here.
they used a Panavision Genesis camera, which was their first HD camera that they made back in the day. I think it's discontinued now, and it's literally shot on like HD like videotape, and I wonder how that shit works because that's crazy
That's
to me.
fascinating,
I
yeah.
Yeah, like that this was an era between the film, like actual physical film that you would have in the camera, and then before you were basically filming onto hard drives or SD cards. This was like we have HD videotape, and that's something I didn't even know existed, which is insane to me. But it definitely does have like a different kind of look. Like it's very, and what's interesting when you have like the Blu-ray, there is a version of it where they clean up all the or they take off all the film distress, all the film
Ah,
grain effects, so you can watch it perfectly clean. Um, but it just doesn't have the same feel to it when they have like the film grain. And
yeah,
this is
no.
the issue when you can take digital footage and you can throw film effects on it, but they won't necessarily look like they gel together unless you maybe have some optical imperfections as well. Like they were shooting with Panavision Primo lenses, which I think are their standard kind of high-end lenses. But if they shot with some deliberately vintage lenses for some shots, I think that would have helped give it that more, you know, grimy kind of organic look that those older films had. And it's weird how like we almost fetishize or we almost enjoy these things that were imperfect, which were back in the day. That's just what that was the limits of what they were working with, right? Like
Yeah, they
that was
didn't
an
want it to
imperfect.
look that way.
It was an
It's just a
imperfect
different
technology.
choice.
They
Yeah.
wanted it to look as good as this does, and
Mhm.
now we're like deliberately trying to give it that old school feel by you know messing with the footage. And sometimes people will shoot something that doesn't look that cool, or that isn't that interesting, and they're like, oh, let's throw a VHS effect filter on or a film effect filter on. Now it looks like it's supposed to be bad looking, um, which is it's a technique I will say that I have used. Like I've
Yeah, me
made
too.
less interesting shots but looked a little more interesting to my eye by throwing film effects on there. But really, I think the focus should be on capturing, um, you know, a thing that works, and maybe you have like a little bit of an effect like that to give it a certain feel that's subconscious but not so overt. But I do blame this film, uh, and I still admire this film for just making me more aware of that medium, because this was like a transitory kind of period. Like
Mhm.
2007, film was still being shot prominently, but HD stuff was coming out like this, and it was like 2010 that they really started switching over from film projection to digital projection, and there was just a whole debate about that. I think even Keanu Reeves made this awesome documentary called Side by Side, where he
Yes.
talked to all the filmmakers and technicians, and he got a look at how does film compare to digital, and what does this mean for the industry going forward. Like it's a new medium, it's a new way of capturing the image. There are some people that still are hold true to the old ways of doing it, like Tarantino. He shoots everything on film still.
Nolan.
Rodriguez has
Yeah.
embraced digital and for what it can do. And I do think that there's some cool like things like Sin City would not have been possible without digital
No,
cameras, I think,
absolutely not.
or,
Yeah.
or digital editing to make it look exactly like that.
No, no. No, no. And there's
Hmm.
an interesting behind the scenes story on why this film looks like that because Robert Rodriguez was like infamous for like pushing digital technology when he was kind of surrounded by a lot of naysayers, Tarantino. So and they were actually this was like a passion project he wanted to do for a while, and Tarantino had said, "Well, I'm cooking up a film called Death Proof. Let's put both of these films together." Robert Rodriguez said, "There's this new technology you can use to add film scratches to your movie, so I want to place a bet for the opening night. I'm gonna put film scratches on my film, but I'm gonna shoot it on digital. And I bet you money because of that, people are gonna think my film was shot on film, and that your movie was shot on digital." And Tarantino's like, "Yeah, you're on. Like, there's no way you're gonna win. Like, I shot on film. People are gonna see that was shot on film." After the showing was done, majority of the audience thought Planet Terror was shot on film. But it's kind of funny to think about looking like back in the day. Like, it's just like you did not do that with digital cameras. Like that was just a brand new technology you didn't see in a major release shot in that kind of format. They're just like, wow, like you can add like film scratches and dust and like change the cell colors. Like, whoa, like that's so mind blowing. But nowadays,
Oh
like
yeah.
so many people have used the effect, so many like indie filmmakers in particular, like it's just kind of funny. Like
Oh yeah.
nowadays, we could look at it and be like, oh, they just added a filter on digital camera work, but
Oh
back
no,
then people were
and
so blown away.
it's a whole like niche thing in the industry now. Like people are selling video overlay assets where basically they just take film that they shot blank and maybe dragged behind a truck or something or thrown around, and then you just get this like clean kind of pass of dirty film grain, and then you just put it on top of your existing footage with a blending mode, and you can adjust how much or how little of effect it has on the end footage. Um, but it's just an overlaid effect basically. Um, and it, like I was really into the whole film and digital debate. Really, it's just an aesthetic difference now. Like the
Really? Yeah.
practicality of it depends on your budget and the people you're working with, basically, whether you shoot digital. And it's honestly impressive, like how interchangeable they are these days. And I liked when you blend the two kind of organically. Like I think Lord of the Rings showed like the promise of digital while working within the film medium, and I love the look of those films still to this day.
Dune
Where
did
you can
something
tell it's
similar. Yeah.
you can tell it's shot on film from like the way it's colored, but then the digital effects absolutely enhance it. Um, but then you have films like I remember watching Detective Pikachu and was shocked to find out that that was shot on film. Um, Even though they would have had all this digital workflow to put these fictional animals back into the frame and then put film grain on top of them to make them look like they belong in the shot. And then you had something like Joker, which very much is an homage to Martin Scorsese's films in the 70s, that whole era. But that was all shot digitally, but then treated in post as if it were shot on film. Like they did a lot of work into the color grading to make it look photochemical. Um, Even though they shot it on like RE Alexa 65s or something like that, which is crazy to me. But
Yeah.
no, it's like it's totally an aesthetic choice these days. Like,
Yeah, it shows how much the medium has evolved. And, I couldn't picture not shooting Ex Machina on digital. I couldn't picture not shooting Mad Max Fury Road on digital with all the coverage they were able to get and all the
oh
color grading
yeah, that
choices.
that
Like,
movie would
you
not have
could.
been possible if it weren't for digital technology and the amount of cameras. They had like 10 RE
Absolutely.
Alexas firing all the time, shooting hours and hours of footage, and then dozens of like sub $3,000 consumer crash cameras. Like just to get additional coverage. Like they have DSLRs kind of hooked up in places to get additional shots, and to shoot all that on film would have been absolutely insane to do.
Yeah, it would have costed way more money, too. Probably more
Oh
money
yeah,
than they had, even. But yeah, it
and
just
they but
shows
the,
how much the
but
medium
then
has
you have
changed and
like
evolved.
guys like Christopher Nolan still like shooting in IMAX. Jordan Peele now also shooting in IMAX,
Yep.
which is really
I
cool.
don't think
It's
he's
it,
shot on film before, has he? Jordan?
Jordan Peele? I don't think so, actually. No,
Yeah,
I
so
think
he's kind of
I think
branching out.
he's been digital up to now, and now he's shooting on full proper IMAX,
Yeah,
which I think is really cool.
mind you,
So
the guy
I like
shooting.
how
Yeah,
interchangeable it is.
yeah, exactly. It really just depends on the project, how much money you have, and what you're comfortable
Hmm.
with too. Like if you're comfortable using a digital camera, use a digital camera. If you're comfortable shooting on film, then well, maybe you should just shoot on film. Yeah, it's all
Hmm.
about personal experience of what you're comfortable with. That's kind of
Oh
an
yeah,
aspect I never
I shot
considered.
on film one time. It was like a roll of 16 millimeter when I was in school. I remember being in the developing room handling it like spaghetti while I was like
Yep.
pointing it through the different chemicals. It was an experience. I don't know how practical like that is, but I do like to shoot that way every so often. It's you're always kind of in this state of uncertainty where you're not sure if you quite captured what you thought you did on the day, or if you're shooting on this like really high contrast black and white film like I did, which is really meant for sound. It's like, are these levels gonna turn out the way I'm imagining they are? Like, because the whites are very white and the blacks are very black on a film stock like that, which you shoot on, because it's cheap, basically. Um, but also it kind of gives that kind of ingrained look, and you're kind of trusting this little light meter to tell you what the exposure should be, and you're hoping that that looks right at the end of it, which miraculously it did, for the project that I was shooting on. Not practical in all situations, but it is fun. It makes you more
Nice.
engaged in what you're capturing as
Yeah,
well, I think, to
exactly.
some
It makes you
extent.
pay attention. Like that's one thing people
Hmm.
like about it. It's like you only got so much time to shoot. So much can go wrong in the shooting process if you don't pay attention, and you also gotta like you can't just edit on a computer. Like you gotta go through it, cell by cell, and kind of if you're
Frame
doing
by
it all
frame.
practically, you gotta like snip it together and staple it together and kind of get your fingers bloody, as Martin Scorsese would say. There is like a
Hmm.
real art and craft to it that I appreciate. But again, it just depends on what resources you have available. And Robert Rodriguez did a great job of the resources he had. I don't know if this film or Sin City is my favorite Robert Rodriguez film. I gotta watch Sin City again to be sure, but man, Planet Terror is definitely up there, and I can tell that this was a passion project he's had since the 90s because it's just oozing with love and charm and glorious, delicious cheese and rocket
And
jumping and Josh Brolin showing up out of nowhere, lesbian revenge. It's great. It's got it all.
testicles.
And yep, lots and lots of testicles, and somehow they always have time to chop off like hundreds of testicles.
Oh
Uh,
man, it was
it,
so gross.
man, yep, it's so gross, so disgusting, and I loved it. Giving this film a great out of 10. Are you fucking kidding me, man? This was a blast. These are the kind of comedies I just love. Just fully self aware without being obnoxious, and just feeling like a passion project because that's what a parody needs. It needs that passion. You can't make a parody fueled from hate because then you get bullshit like Meet the Spartans or Scary Movie where it's clear that they have no idea what the genre entails because they hate it so much. Where, the best jokes are often made about people familiar with one another. And the same
Oh
applies
yeah.
to genre films as well.
I often say that hate is a waste of energy and it doesn't help you creatively, really.
Yeah,
If you make
exactly.
something out of spite, it doesn't make it better,
Yeah, if you don't make
necessarily.
it out of spite, and you can hate and love something at the same time, you can love something enough to want to criticize it. And I think that's where all these great
Mhm.
parodies come from. So great
Like
out of 10.
I think the best parodies come from Place of Love, which is why I also think Galaxy Quest is one of the best movies ever made.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
but
Well, I mean, I don't
I'll
think
save that
it's yeah,
discussion for another day. We should talk about that one again at some point. But
absolutely. We gotta get
no,
Steven to watch it.
I agree with you. This movie's great. It's an 8 out of 10.
Man, I'm gonna get this on Blu-ray. I hope it comes to 4K soon.
Ooh,
If I
I
have to get with Death Proof, I'll kill myself. But if I could get it separately, I'll be very happy.
not to make you jealous, but one time I was at a Giant Tiger of all places, which if you don't know is like a little cheap retail store in
Yeah, I've
Canada.
been there.
Um, but at one point they had Sin City and the two Grindhouse movies all on Blu-ray together in one pack for like $20, and I picked it up.
That's not bad.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's not bad. I do
it
love
was
me
good.
some Sin City, so I haven't seen it in a while, but I just remember loving the style and something about like all of the dialogue and the acting just fits that noir vibe so well. And it's a genre I wholeheartedly love, so I'll
Oh, yeah.
definitely go back to it someday. So, uh, my friendship was regained with Planet Terror because my friendship was lost with Guns Akimbo. Let's talk about. Oh, let's talk about this. Devin, I want to
Oh
fight this
boy.
movie right off the bat. I want to fight
I
this movie.
actually, but before you get into it, I actually have another friend of mine to blame for me seeing this movie. Actually, it was uh, a good buddy of mine from work. I won't say his name on here, John. Um, but no, he's a good buddy of mine from work, and we were doing like a DVD exchange for a while, and I still have some of his movies from pre-pandemic, and he still has a couple of my movies from pre-pandemic that we lent each other. One of which was Guns Akimbo, and it was just sitting there while waiting for me to see it, and I'm like, I just don't have time because I'm watching these movies on this podcast, and it's like exhausting to watch 3 movies a week sometimes. I do want to watch it sometime though. And then lo and behold, it gets recommended for the show. I'm like, damn, I finally have a reason to watch this one. Awesome. Other than I had it on lent from a friend for a while, and I gave him my kind of quick thoughts on it. I told him that I had fun watching it, which was true. I did have fun watching this one. It reminded me of the movie Nerve, and I like this movie quite a bit more than Nerve. That said, I didn't like Nerve very much.
All right, so Guns Akimbo. The boy who lived plays this game developer who's working on this shitty mobile game that's totally not a ripoff of like Flappy Bird. Well,
It was
they're
called Nut Job. It was called Nut Job or something like
Nut
that,
Job, yeah, but it's clearly like a spin on like Flappy Bird or like
or no,
addictive
it
games.
was Nut Bust too. That's what it was.
Oh, wow, very
Of
clever.
course, and it had a
Such
squirrel on it
such
or a chipmunk,
subtle,
depending.
much wow. Oh
So
man.
subtle. This
Okay,
the
so
this
uh,
movie is as subtle as the first Suicide Squad.
uh, that movie is a sole masterpiece compared to this. But let's carrying
Agreed.
on. Okay. So off track. Apologize about that. So the boy who lived gets taken on by this basically this streaming company that streams actual
Prism,
people. Yeah, Schism. Streams
which
actual
is a
people actually like going out and killing each other, John Wick style, just track each other down and killing each other for views for a bunch of random streamers we have no reason to care about and have no personality whatsoever.
it's like Twitch with real deaths because look at where we are in society.
Devin,
I also
I'm
love that. I also
trying.
love that the website is named after a Tool song, Schism.
Devin, I'm trying not to fight this movie yet, so give me some time to breathe.
Go for it.
uh, so eventually, Daniel Radcliffe, I forgot what this happens. He basically hacks or trolls like the streaming service. So, in order to get
He
revenge,
counter trolls the trolls basically. That's how he gets
that's right. Yeah, he
that.
counter
That's
trolls
who
the
he does
trolls,
stuff.
and
He's
that
like I'm a nobody, so I enjoy, just trolling people online. Which who says that? Like this is the type of it's so weird watching like modern movies or like movies adapt this old kind of format, talking about like a new thing like the internet. It's kind of cringe. It feels like it's in retrograde, trying to then tell a classical story through the context of like the internet. Like when they portray the internet in movies like this, it just it gets it all wrong. You
yeah,
know what I mean?
so Scuzza shows up to his house, and in the scene that's totally not ripping off the Big Lebowski. They
Oh
bolt guns into his hands, and that lasts about 5 minutes. Stays on the street. Small Weaving doesn't kill him. Who's this badass assassin that Daniel Radcliffe has to kill, or else he's gonna die himself? So she doesn't kill him because plot armor, and I fucking hated this steaming hot pile of uninspired, hateful,
yeah.
annoying, unlikable, hot garbage. If it wasn't for Pathfinder, this would be the worst fucking movie we've talked about on this podcast. This would be the worst movie. I laughed
Wow.
once.
This
I had like
come
two
on.
performances,
It's
and
You
that's
know what?
it.
It was over the top. It was cheesy. It was ridiculous. And I don't think it took itself seriously at all. I mean,
But it which is fine if it was actually funny. But none of it was funny to me because every character just talks like a B-rate Deadpool. Like it's all just like fuck tits, dick balls, poopy
fuckface.
shoopy, which is an actual line written in the movie, written by an adult, written for adult audiences, and I officially lost faith in humanity. Thanks, Matt.
Wow.
Fuck you.
It's very. Oh, I can't wait to hear his feedback on
Oh
this. But
man.
you know what? I think Steven actually wasn't a fan of this movie either. Which this would be a rare instance where both of you actually agree.
Yeah, right.
Man, why isn't Steven
But
on
I
tonight?
mean,
This is
hey,
nuts.
a movie so spiteful and hateful that it unites two countries together
Incredible.
in a crisis against
I
a
mean,
common enemy.
again, it reminded me of a movie called Nerve, which I completely forgotten about, which takes like the PG-13 route of this kind of story. Like
Oh,
I think it was basically it was like a dare contest where there were like further and further legal dares. The only reason I even knew about the movie or even looked into it because I heard Casey Neistat had a little cameo role in it, which his role in it was definitely something he shot himself and he did as a friend favor because it's very much out of character for him
yeah,
to do that kind of thing in the context of the movie even. But that was the whole thing they did, that they brought in like real, I think, internet celebrities into it to try to add some validity to it. But it was like this like Twitch streamed dare contest, which the dares would get more and more illegal, and there was like a love story that they shoehorned into that. There is kind of a love story thrown in this one, but at least this one's a little more cathartic with blood and guts and how ridiculous it is. In that sense, I mean, I did like it better than the original Suicide Squad, although it's very much of that style.
that
Which, if you like, cool, good for you. Like this isn't something I would want to watch or indulge in all the time. It definitely feels like it's meant for an adult audience, but a very juvenile adult audience.
yeah, it's
You
meant
know
for
what I mean?
12-year-old Twitch streamers
Uh,
that don't know how
or
Twitch works because this movie doesn't understand how fucking streaming works either. But the guy
Oh
claims
yeah.
who directed this movie claims he's so good at streaming, but you clearly don't understand how fucking streaming works.
Well, it reminded me a bit of a Truman Show as well, the way that they showed some of those people watching and reacting
Yeah,
to
but the
things. Like
difference with the Truman Show is that the
the
people
fucking
involved
yeah.
actually have some development. Like, take the chick, for example, in the Truman Show. Like, it's established that she's a part of, like, a rebellious group that wants to get Truman out of the show. Like, she has a sense of history and a past and a character. These streamers are just random people that I have no reason to care about. They all talk the exact same. There was a line once, I think it was Neil Druckmann on the first Last of Us, where he said, you should be able to close your eyes and everyone, like, imagine closing your eyes and having all of the voice actors sound the same. You should still be able to tell who's talking by just from how the characters are written. And boy howdy, does this film not understand how that film works. Like, there
No,
are
no,
some
like
scenes where
all
yeah.
the audience feels the same. They feel like
Yeah.
just so underdeveloped, and there was such a potential they could have had for that in
Hmm.
developing those characters a little bit more.
Yeah.
Like you get these little snippets, and you're just like, what are these guys watching this in a fucking change room for? You know,
Yeah, like,
like
are
they
they
look like they
gay?
just.
Did they just fuck? Like, what is it? Are they just sports? Like, I don't know anything about these guys. Like, what with that random fat guy in his room? Like, at least in something stupid like Gamer, that guy's like kind of a character and ties into the plot somehow. That guy's just some random fat guy in his room because video games are bad for your health, I guess. Like, I don't know. I don't know anything about them.
He's a guy that watches streams all the time at home, and he just eats Tito's.
Oh God, man, those video
Wow,
games, that streaming, it's gonna get you.
what a what an insightful character
Yeah,
description.
exactly.
Uh,
What insightful and
that says a lot
powerful.
about society.
Yeah, it says a lot about fucking society. But even the
Uh,
main character, he's so unlikable. Like, I have. There was.
mhm.
At least with Venom, I'd argue Eddie's somewhat likable. In the sense that, like, okay, he got kicked out of his apartment for doing this job. He got kicked. There was a guy that he generally hates that's responsible for him getting fired, and from those perspectives, it's like, okay, like, I can kind of relate to this person, but Daniel Radcliffe's like, you're fine. Like, you have a nice apartment, you're just a dick to everyone you meet. Like, there's a scene where his friend is, like, throwing something at him and trying to warn him, and then Radcliffe's mad at him. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, your best friend tried to warn you that your boss was coming. Why are you such a dick? Like, why?
Oh
Like,
yeah.
wow, I'm glad this is the likable protagonist I'm gonna relate to throughout the entire movie. And like, Samara Weaving is like slightly more relatable, but they pull like the cheapest, most manipulative route. Like, oh, she had a bad childhood. Oh, she was separated from her father. Oh, that's so sad. But I feel nothing for it because there were no scenes establishing their relationship. She doesn't seem all that phased that her dad's dead. In one scene, like, there's nothing. Felt nothing but embarrassment from this movie. It was just a
I
stream of
forgot about that
embarrassment.
whole subplot entirely, and
Exactly.
recalling this film. Like, you know what? Like, it did, maybe it did something for the moment. It kept it watchable in the moment, but I completely forgot about it after the fact. It didn't have that much of a lasting impact for me to care too much about what's going on. I love the like unmotivated colored lighting. They just have like these washes of reds and blues in there for
No
basically no
reason.
reason other than it looks cool. Although, you know, I do like the sets design, or they basically just shot in abandoned buildings with
Yeah,
neon
like,
lights.
there's no sets.
It
They
looks
shot
cool.
in like
Let,
people's apartments and abandoned sets.
oh yeah, it looks pretty cool though. I like when they utilize spaces like that. Although, you know, there is something to be said about the fun value of this picture, but what it adds up to in the end is not much. Like it's very passable entertainment for sure. Like I would chalk it up to that. I was just looking though, this director, his name's Jason Lee Howard, I think, or Howden.
Yeah.
Apparently he also did this movie called Deathgasm, which I heard some interesting things about. He also done visual effects for the Avengers and Lord of the Rings, or he was part of one of the teams for that. So I guess that's how he got his kind of foot in the door in making movies like this.
What a fall from grace.
Oof.
Um, fuck. Okay,
Well,
God.
I think there's a reason some people maybe stay in the visual effects departments and aren't directing.
Yeah, here's my thing about the presentation of this movie. I think we owe Turbo Kid an apology for how it shots
Oh wow.
action scenes. At least, yeah, Turbo Kid, as poorly choreographed and poorly edited as it was, at least it didn't make my eyes want to bleed. At least
Well,
it
you know
didn't
what?
ruin old songs with shitty remixes.
You know what? They were a little maybe ambitious, a little too ambitious with some of the coverage of how they shot stuff. Like they were like when he woke up with guns stapled to his hands, they basically shot it all upside down.
Yeah, for no reason.
Because no, it's like this is really disorienting. What a really disorienting circumstance this guy is. Like it's just really laying it on thick with that. Like
Yeah,
I get the idea behind it, but it's just a little extra,
it
a little
tries
bit
too
extra.
hard. Yeah, here's
It's
going.
there are some fun transitions though. Like I do like how the the camera kind of barrel rolls and then that transitions from one scene to another. That's kind of cool, but it's just a bit much sometimes
It's
the way
way
they
too
did that.
much.
Like they were really focusing uh like extra on the visual presentation over the plot or the story.
Yeah, there's no substance. And here's the thing: like the editing, especially during the action scenes, is so bad. Like I can't tell what's happening, but it looks like, you know how a lot of films will like chop up like action scenes because the actors clearly couldn't do their own stunts, or their stunts looked really shitty, so they just had to work around it. In this, it looks like, from what I read, apparently Samara and Daniel did like a decent amount of their own stunts. It looked like everybody knew what they were doing, and like everything was there and choreographed. But for some
Yeah.
reason, they just decided to shoot it like shit. They decided to just
Yeah.
shoot it in a way that didn't seem that way, but it does. But for some reason,
Mhm.
this director had to shoot it with that style, and it's so nauseating and so disrespectful to like the crew
Well,
members that clearly put like a lot of work into doing these stunts. Because I read in an interview that Jason Lee Howden basically said like, "Oh, I wanted the movie to look like a video game. I wanted to match the presentation of what it feels like to play a game." But no video
yeah.
game fucking looks like this, dude. What video games have you been playing? No video game looks like
Well,
this.
it's definitely how movies think video games kind of look. I mean,
Exactly.
Free
Ugh,
Guy
okay.
had kind of the same problem,
Yep.
but on an even bigger budget. I was just reading the IMDb summarization of this, and it's funny. Anytime I read an IMDb like description that doesn't exactly match, it says a guy relies on his newly acquired gladiator skills to save his ex-girlfriend from kidnappers.
Wait,
When does
what?
he ever acquire gladiator skills? When does that ever happen in the movie?
It doesn't.
That makes no sense.
It doesn't
And
even
I
really.
like that
Yeah, go on.
I like that his character's so important that they just call him a guy.
Yeah, like he's so one-dimensional. Like I don't even remember the names of any of the characters. Like they even mentioned Samara Weaving's character's name so many times. So it's like I just don't care. I don't care. It's not my bad memory at this point. I just don't give a shit because these are not characters. They are all just Jason Lee Howden's way of trying to be cool and funny and expressing his hatred for Twitch. Like it's just so mean-spirited, so ugly, and horribly written and unfunny. Like the one time I laughed was when somebody asked for a selfie from Guy and he said, "Sure," and he just walked away. It's like that's the one time I laughed. Like that was a joke that was timed well, that was subtle, and didn't draw too much attention to itself. Something the rest of the humor doesn't do. And some of the humor is just like the most basic, like, yeah, of course you made that joke. Like when they're using the
hmm
hammers and they say hammer time, and then hammer time
Or
plays for some reason. That's
Nyx,
hilarious.
the one girl, she names her guns kindness. So
Oh
she's
yeah.
literally killing people with kindness.
And she says the joke. It's like you don't need to say the joke. Just say your guns are named kindness and move on with the fucking movie. I hate it when comedies do that.
Oh yeah.
Everything I hate about modern movies is in this movie. Every trend I hate. Like even like the whole like, oh, well in the real world, guns make a loud noise. In the real world, like, like the girl wouldn't get a lady boner, she'd get PTSD from you killing a guy. I'm just like, fuck you, movie. You don't get the right to be realistic. You don't get to jerk me around with this nonsense for an hour, 90 plus minutes, and then pull a, well, actually, this is what would happen in the real world. It's like, no, fuck off. You didn't earn that right. This isn't smart. This isn't clever. This is just you being an obnoxious twat. Shut up. I hate this movie.
As if that wasn't evident or clear
I
before.
know, but I'm sorry. It's just this movie. I stopped and I pulled the 2010 and stopped this movie halfway through. Went out for a
Oh
walk late
no.
at night and came back and forced myself to watch it. The
Is
only
that?
way I could watch it was
I
yeah.
forgot that's what you did for 2010 as well. I mean,
Yep.
man, I don't think that movie would, inspire that much hate in a person. But all
Uh,
right,
I mean, yeah, well, this movie did it too. And the only reason I watched the
incredible.
second half was with my mom, and she's like, it doesn't look that bad. Then we watched it. It's like, yep, that was pretty shit. That was
Oh
pretty
yeah.
fucking shit.
No, I was sure that no one else in my family would be interested in watching this one. Well, I got my brother to watch it as well. He
Yeah.
he kind of enjoyed it. He said,
Well, my mom only wanted to watch it because Daniel Radcliffe is in it, which I will say, the two only positive points of this movie, Daniel Radcliffe and Samara Weaving look like they do a good job. They do a decent
mm-hmm,
job. Like they're the only actors that cared. Like they look like they're having some fun with their roles. And even though I didn't laugh, there were like a couple of smiles at certain points with
mm-hmm.
how devoted they were to these crazy characters. But they just have nothing to work with. And
Yeah.
may I
Well,
just say, the
I I I
villain. Sorry, go on.
I think it really says something that Daniel Radcliffe had a more lively and engaging performance when he played a farting corpse
Yeah.
uh, in that movie Swiss Army Man, directed by the Daniels.
I think your
Um,
boner is
that,
pointing us in the right direction.
which, speaking of which, why did we have to see his dick in that one shot? Remember when he was trying to pee, and
Yeah,
they just give him
why?
this like 10-inch fake dick to pretend to be peeing from? And it's like we didn't need to see that. Like
We
I
just
could
need to see.
infer that
Yeah, the
I
guns. Yeah.
I could infer that he's trying to use guns as hands, and this is creating a lot of difficulty for him.
Yeah.
Which that was something I kind of appreciated at first, just showing how he's trying to change his pants with this thing. And I wish they kept that situation a little more grounded. Like how does one work with this practically?
I know.
Like I think there's so much potential for subtle humor like that, but they just kind of forget about
Yeah,
it
they don't
after a
do
while.
anything with it. Like,
After the homeless man helps him get dressed, and that's a whole awkward scene. Like that was a funny kind of scene in and of itself. Was him
sure.
asking a homeless guy for help, and then him meeting like an old hot dog or something.
Oh,
But it's those more grounded moments in this absurd situation that I connected with more, and I wish there was just a little bit more of
yeah.
that.
The film just doesn't know what it wants to be. Like, does it want to be like a weird Paul Verhoeven-esque satire on streamer culture? Does it want to be like a Venom-like story where here's how this character deals with their normal life of this like awful miracle of sorts? Or does it want to be a crazy, fun, dumb, fun action movie,
I think it's trying to
schlockfest
be all
like
of that.
Neville Dean and Tyler? Yeah, he tries to do all of that. And he doesn't succeed at anything he's doing because nothing never has enough time to breathe. And even like the satire, like what's the message? Like it's the message that Twitch culture is bad.
Violence bad.
Yeah,
Violence bad.
Twitch is bad. Okay. Video games bad. Okay.
People love violence, and
Wow.
we're like,
So
yeah.
deep.
Ah,
So fucking deep, man. And I read some reviews on Letterboxd where it's like, it's an interesting satire. I'm like, no, it isn't because it doesn't have anything to say. That is the worst kind of satire where it's like, oh, we're saying some, like, we're talking about a common issue, so that means we're important. That means we don't have to try. It's like, that is the worst kind of satire imaginable. I hate that shit, and I hate how this movie does it too. Oh my god.
it's got a 42 out of 100 on
Which
Metacritic.
is way too high. We'll get into that in a bit.
It's got
I'm
a
not done.
51% on RT.
Too high.
Reading. I'm just doing my research here.
No, please feel free.
Midstream. Yeah.
The music, it's awful. It's either just shitty remixes of 80s music that doesn't fit at all, or it's just like awful, like generic, like lo-fi hop free YouTube playlist music that you could get on YouTube for free. And here's the weird thing: there were some songs they could clearly get the licenses for, and then there were some songs they did remixes for. And here's what I think happened. So, because Hammer Time is just Hammer Time, and the song I forget what it's called. It's like when the shit goes down, you better be ready. When the shit goes down,
Right.
like I think that's just that song. But here's what I think happened: they got the royalties for those songs, and they're just like, shit, that was really expensive. We have these action scenes planned for these songs. I know what we can do. To avoid royalties, we'll just have the DJ that did our soundtrack just make shitty remixes of these songs. Even though, like, there's no reason like a slaughter of 30 hitmen have to have you spin me right round. Like there's no reason for that song being played there. There's no reason for that at all. It's just a nostalgic, like, oh my god, I remember this cool song from the 80s. I remember this cool song from the 90s. Like, that's all it is. It serves no purpose. It adds nothing. And on top of that, it's a shitty remix, which Aquaman already made my ears bleed with that Pitbull remix of Africa. I don't need this
Uh,
film to add on to that several times.
I forgot. You know what? Yeah, I kind of watched Aquaman. I didn't see all of it. I just remember watching it. Uh, and near the beginning there was a song by Sigur Rós, and I was like really sleep deprived, and I just remember like crying a little bit and then falling asleep, and then I don't remember the rest of the movie. It was nice hearing that Sigur Rós song though. It was
Yeah,
nice. It
that's
was
good.
very lulling. It's like a lullaby, you know? Like Sigur Rós, good stuff. If you don't know them,
Yeah, very
uh,
good band.
nice Icelandic band. They have music in a lot of movies actually.
Mm.
Vanilla Sky, I think, was one, and
Um,
another one was Electric Aquatic.
127 hours. Great use
Anyway,
of sound again.
it inspires me to watch other movies other than this one.
Yeah, right. I'm done shane on this movie. I could talk about this movie forever. Every
uh,
character talks the same. I didn't care about anybody. It looks like shit. It sounds like shit. None of the
it's
action
you know
scenes
what,
were
like they
interesting.
use these very toxic looking colors, which in the wild, uh, is usually a sign you're supposed to keep away. You know, if there's a creature that has a bright yellow or bright pink kind of exterior, probably poisonous. And that's the whole color scheme of this movie. It's just very poisonous looking
Hmm.
colors.
Yeah.
Bright pinks, bright yellows, bright greens, bright reds, bright
Yep.
blues. Just they can look beautiful, but they're intentionally quite garish. And if that's what you're into toxic media, then this is right up your alley.
Yep.
Um, right next to just this seems like the perfect movie to watch if you're gonna eat one of those purple candy bars from Crimes of the Future.
You could also shove a gun up your ass and pull the trigger. That'll probably be a better experience
Well,
than watching
you know,
this
you know
movie.
what? I was looking at like the thumbnail for the trailer of this, and
Mm.
it shows the image of him pointing the gun to his head. I feel like that's where the movie should have ended. Is if like you have the whole same setup and everything, and then when the homeless man instructs him to shoot himself better, he actually just does it. Maybe he doesn't get 100% killed by it, but that'd be like a shocking like midway kind of turning point. And it's like, well, he just shot himself. I think he's dead. And now he's just kind of homeless in the street with guns for hands and he's kind of bleeding out. I don't know. You could take the story a very different direction from there, where it suddenly grounds it in a shocking reality to an extent,
Yeah, I
and all
know.
this stuff
If
just
it,
dissolves as being meaningless.
just commit to
I think
something.
that'd be, I think it'd be more interesting if it had took a sideways plot deviant like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, also the film would be over quicker, so that would make it better. I'm
Which
giving this.
wait,
You go on.
it really says something about the movie if like him shooting himself seems like a better ending.
Yeah.
Ugh.
God, this film was apparently written and directed by an idiotic Twitch streamer and the anti-troll, and boy, does it feel like it. Personally, I normally couldn't give a shit about like the person being involved being toxic, the person being involved in a film. I mean, but even if this guy was Keanu fucking Reeves, even if he was the nicest, most wholesome guy in the world, I would still think less of him for having made this movie, and I think less of my friend Matt for having made me watch this. You're lucky
Oh
recommended
wow.
Planet Terror 2 out of 10. Very generous 2 out of 10 just for Daniel Radcliffe and Smart Weaving. Like, they still cared, I guess.
Wow.
Oh, you gotta give it.
Yeah. Good question. I don't have an answer for you.
Alright, what about a 6.9?
Or I could give it a 3.4.
There you go. Nice. Don't watch it. Don't watch it. Do anything else. Go outside. That's better than watching this movie. So thank you guys so much for listening. That was a very interesting and entertaining episode. Thank you so much, Devin. As always, you're a great co-host, buddy. Thank you for
Thanks, man.
being willing to take this episode on solo with me. And boy, do I have a surprise for you because next week it's my episode, baby. It's
Oh
prime
yeah.
time.
What do we have next week?
So, Next week is just trying to remember what I called the episode. Just one second. Uh,
Eyes of
so,
God.
uh, yeah, yes, Through the Eyes of God. So we are talking about our first silent movie, Passion of the Joan of Arc, from the late 20s. I've heard a lot about it. Very excited to watch it. The full film is on YouTube, but it's not in English, unfortunately. So hopefully there will be another way to find it and watch it. The
I'm sure there
Exorcist,
is.
which I regretfully haven't seen, so I'm looking forward to that film as well. Steven didn't manipulate that choice at all. And Martin
Wow.
Scorsese's Silence, which I've seen in theaters and I haven't seen it since. Looking forward to watching it again. Alright, this has been Thursdays with Moire, and as always, please stay tuned for Conan. And is it Thursday yet? Have a great night, guys. See you!